So, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope you've enjoyed B-Sides Bristol so far, because I know lots of things to learn and lots of people to see. My name is Andreea Mihai. I am the Security Awareness and Education Manager at the EC Beechcroft here in Bristol. This is a law firm, so we don't do anything security per se, but we do have a security function. What does that mean? I work with our security team and the wider IT teams to make sure that our colleagues are educated when it comes to online, how to stay safe, both at work and at home. So you might think that staying safe at work is done through all sorts of tools like VPNs and firewalls and all sorts of things like that. But why should we care about security at home, right? Why do we need a dedicated person to teach people all of that? Well, ultimately we should care because what we're trying to do is help people understand the dangers, help people learn strategies that will help them stay safe long term, rather than just like applying a band-aid in the moment, rather than having them rely on technology to keep them safe. We are trying to teach them behaviors that can help shift the culture and the attitude towards the safer approach. So what we're trying to do is bring more than awareness to our colleagues, and we're trying to help them understand the impact of their actions and why is their responsibility in staying secure online, because the human risk element is crucial in maintaining our organization safe. So, what is security awareness and how we can make it everyone's business? When we say security awareness, we usually reference this bog standard definition, the formal process of educating employees about cybersecurity best practices to help them better navigate the many cybersecurity threats they may face at work and at home. But what is the problem there? Because we live in a world where we're all exposed to all kinds of cyber threats. Defining cybersecurity responsibilities feels almost impossible. And what is the easiest way to define the impossible? Make it possible by teaching everyone, and I mean everyone, about their important role in staying secure online. So, this is the problem. Who should be responsible for our cybersecurity? Because usually the misconception about our industry is that only cybersecurity people should care about cybersecurity. However, if you ask anyone, families, friends, colleagues, what do they think when they think about cyber threats? Chances are they think of this guy with a hoodie in a black room, typing away all sorts of things, trying to crack your password and steal your data and your money. But if you ask them to think about cybersecurity, they'll see this guy typing away equally furiously, trying to protect you, trying to prevent that breach from happening. So, in the grand scheme of things, there are hidden dangers that people overlook when it comes to cybersecurity. There might be the chance of tailgating that people don't consider, or the chance of someone reading their emails on the train and they're not considering it, or someone forgetting to unlock their computer, and that's what happens. In terms of the human element, because at the bottom of it, this is what's causing all of this. We all know that there are nuances to cybersecurity and cybersecurity approaches, and because bypassing people is generally the easier options for threat actors, they will try to concentrate their efforts by targeting people instead of tools, right? Instead of email security, for example, or instead of your cloud. They might be trying to phish your employees, or pretend to be a delivery person, or pretend to be a contractor, you name it, because those attempts are generally more successful than just targeting a tool. And while we cannot prevent those attempts with a 100% success rate, what we can prevent is, or reduce, is their impact on us. So what we need to understand is that as long as we have a human firewall full of people who are educated and aware and proactive and ready to take action when something suspicious happens, we can prevent a major incident from happening. So you've probably seen this stat before, is the 2024, the data breach investigation report by Verizon. It was like 84% a couple of years ago. Now it's gone down to 68%. This means that 68% of data breaches happened because of someone clicking on something or doing something they shouldn't have. So basically what the problem is, we've been trying for the past few years to bring our expertise and knowledge and make cybersecurity accessible for everyone. But how do we make it accessible? How do we define who has responsibility over what? And how do we make sure that our colleagues and families and friends are knowledgeable and receptive and proactive, and that they are as protected as they need to be? This is the solution. So that's what people still do, actually. They rely on phishing simulation. So do we keep throwing phishing simulations at them, hoping that they won't click on a link or they won't download an attachment? Do we tell them, these are the red flags, check out the spelling, check out the grammar, hover over links? Do we tell them, make sure you open the link in a sandbox or something like that? Do we ask them to make sure that they don't submit their credentials to a bogus website? What do we do? Do we throw mandatory training at them, or bite-sized training, or nudges, because they're the new buzzword now? What is the goal? Because we can do all of that, but what is the goal of all of that? So, going back to the initial question, how to make cybersecurity everyone's business? Because ultimately, it's not just about being aware. People are aware, but we're not trying to scare people into awareness. We're trying to make them understand that cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. And whether we like it or not, everyone will make their own choices of how they will contribute to being cyber aware and cyber secure. So, how do we convince our colleagues and family and friends to get on board with our efforts, with our approach to security? Because it's often challenging, and people have various needs and skills and resources, and a blanket approach is rarely successful. So, going back to this report, this is the human element. This is what threat actors see, and this is what they know. And we've been trying to reduce the number. So we've managed to get it down from 84 to 68%. But this is a long-term goal. This won't happen overnight. And in the meantime, threat actors will still have access to people and will still try to get them to click, download, submit information, send money, all sorts of things. So because our lives are so intertwined, the professional and the personal life, we need to teach people that we're trying to think long-term, and we need them to get on board to see the big picture with us, so that we can rely on them to learn those long-term behaviors at work, practice them at home, and then bring them back into the office. And it's kind of a rinse-repeat kind of situation, where the more you know, the more you learn, and the more you do, the more you know, and so on and so forth. And we need to teach them what security questions they need to ask, what red flags to pay attention to, what triggers they need to be aware of. This is their buy-in, because at the end of the day, they don't have our big picture, but they need to understand why do we want them to get on the same journey, on the long-term approach as we are. What we're offering here is a lifelong skill that won't just be useful in the current job. It's useful at home, it's useful with their family, their friends, their children, their future jobs, and many other instances of their lives. So, the solution would be to have regular users talking to cybersecurity, but sometimes there's a mismatch in terms of the conversation level. It's like talking in foreign language. It's like having two opposite sides of the barricade trying to understand each other. You have the regular users who need context and need to be made comfortable to ask questions, need to access information, they need to submit tickets or questions or queries. And from what I heard by talking to people on this side of the barricade is sometimes it is difficult because there is a sense of gatekeeping, and that information is not easily accessible to regular users, and they don't understand why changes are being implemented the way they are being implemented. So what we need to work on is trying to make people feel comfortable asking questions, trying to make sure that their questions do not come across as stupid, because no one wants to be made feel like they're stupid at the end of the day. We need to make it more explicit to them why changes are happening the way they are, and how are we implementing security measures. And we need to make it easier for them to find information, to find policies and guidelines, to submit tickets, to ask questions. In my organization, for example, I am the designated person, and people sometimes come to me and ask me all sorts of security questions. And it's easy because they have a friendly face, or I hope so, and they get the answers they need. And if they have access to the big picture, the more questions they ask, the more it is easier in the future to ask further questions. So it's kind of, again, a prophecy fulfilled in a way, because one thing leads to another, and the snowball goes on and on and on, and they accumulate information, and then it's easier for them to understand what they don't know and continue asking questions. But what happens on the other side of the barricade? Because cybersecurity professionals, they do have the context, they have the understanding, they have the answers, or at least know how to find them. They can deal with tickets and queries, all sorts of things like that. But we need to make space for regular users to come and ask us questions, because at the end of the day, all the cybersecurity professionals I've talked to, they all want to be asked questions. The problem is they never know where to start explaining. So it's kind of hard to assess someone's level of knowledge. So on this side, we're expecting people to come to us and ask us things. On the other side, the other person doesn't know what they don't know. So it's kind of making space for regular users, like I said before, to come and be vulnerable in front of us. Because not knowing something is a level of vulnerability that most people are not comfortable with. So what should we do? Like, now the conversation flows freely between the two sides of the barricade, but the reality is it is very difficult to make these two groups talk to each other. They need to coexist so closely, and at the same time, it's kind of hard to find the common language and the common ground to understand each other. So, who in this room is the IT person in your family, for example? Okay, cool. Do you have MFA active? Cool. Does your family ask you to activate MFA? Okay, just a couple of you. Why don't you have MFA active on your family accounts? Why don't you have MFA active on your family accounts? Does it look like this? Does it look like this? Okay. Because usually that's where the problem lies. There's a mismatch in understanding. There's a mismatch in language, right? And you can try hundreds of times to get them to buy in the security concept. And I know that my partner doesn't want MFA. So it's hard. I know it's hard. But the problem is the printer is not working. I don't know. There are security updates that need to be installed on your phone or your laptop. Someone lost access to an account. What do you do? Because chances are, as the designated IT person, you will have to go through that process multiple times. And at some point, you'll probably experience that. And this is when we need to remember those people, they do not have the same knowledge, the same information as we do. And what we need to do is bring in the understanding and the patience in to help them feel at ease. Because if you treat them like that, they won't come back to say, hey, I just changed my phone and I lost access to all my bank accounts. Can you help me? Because they know they will be treated with that. And I'm not shaming anyone because I've done it. I lose patience all the time. But what we need to work on is making people feel supported in asking questions and helping them to get where we are in terms of autonomy, if you like. Because ultimately, that's what we want. We want people to feel as comfortable as we are in terms of being secure online. So, like I said, the solution: share the knowledge, be helpful, make people feel comfortable asking questions, be kind and patient. Because if people don't feel supported in asking a silly security questions, how would they feel if they have to report something? Do they know how to report it? Should they report it, first of all? Should they ignore it? Should they wait till someone else deals with it and it's not my business, I'm done with it? Do they know where to find the guidance? Like I said before, there's that sense of not knowing where information is and not knowing who to ask when it comes to that. This is why cybersecurity is everyone's business, because people who know what email headers are and what conditional access is need to talk to people who don't know that they can rename their Wi-Fi. And they need to find a common ground and maybe a common language. So, how do we do this? Because we have options. We have the easy way, we have the hard way, and we'll say, oh, easy way. Good, great, let's do that. How is that easy? Because you have simulated phishing accounts every month, every day, you name it. People do it in all sorts of various ways depending on their organization. Is that all that is? Is like mandatory training all that is? Like if you have mandatory training once a year, is that good enough to keep people safe? To help them learn behaviors rather than be reactive? Remedial training. Okay, they clicked on a phishing link. Okay, they'll see me. I'm sure they'll be very happy. You can use internal communications for that. That's also an option. How useful is that? Who will sit at their desk and read the newsletter, the company newsletter, once a month or once a quarter, just to find out what's new in cybersecurity? The general consensus is that these points are enough to provide training and awareness. It depends. Like, if people continue seeing this, the red flags, the boring mandatory training, they might think, okay, that's all I need to know. I'm going to delete the information from my head in the next 15 minutes and that's it. I'll see it next year. I'm good. Because at the end of the day, people still need to do their jobs. They need to pay invoices and create marketing things. I don't know. Like, I've worked in IT all my life, so I don't know what other people do. But like, we don't want to waste their time, right? So we think, oh yeah, those 4 approaches, they're good enough. But is it enough? Is it the same dry training with outdated information the way to go? Or do we need to do more? Because depending on an organization, I would argue that some people are a bit more inclined to comply with the rules, and this kind of approach will benefit them. So you won't have people like clicking willy-nilly all over the place. But just like we teach people how to lock doors, regardless, we need to teach people to form healthy and achievable habits when it comes to their online presence. This would require us to think outside the box and understand where we are on our journey together as an organization, what are our main risks and what our goal is. So, this is where the hard way comes in, because you need to have the long-term vision, you need to assess the cyber risk, assess your employees and their behaviors, and you need to build a cyber strategy around it. Because instead of focusing on the present time and ticking that compliance box, this is the long-term vision that we need to focus on. So, what kind of questions do you need to ask ultimately? You have to understand where your baseline is. So, do your employees share admin accounts? Do they share access badges? Do they send passwords in chat? Do you have tools to check that? Do you have tools to prevent that? Do they send confidential documents to other private email accounts? Sometimes it's theirs, sometimes it's someone else's. Doesn't matter. Do they know where the policies are and where they're stored and how to access them? Do they know the impact of data breach? Do they know where to report? Because that's the key element. Suspicious things will always happen, but do we know what to do when they happen? At the end of the day, people are at the center of it all. So you can put as many security tools in place as you can to prevent something bad from happening. You can have a 24/7, 365 SOC team available. The reality is, if someone from marketing doesn't pay attention to a red flag in an email and they click on it, who knows what they might expose the organization to. So, think of yourself. Think of your online presence, for example. These are things I've seen people share on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all sorts of social media websites. What kind of information do you volunteer yourself? Like, I'm sure people will have a picture of their dog. Here's Rusty with me traveling in my Fiat 500 to the seaside. People know where you are now, what kind of car do you drive. Maybe they know where you live because when you took the picture, you can see part of your house with a number in it, all sorts of things. Maybe you're very good at not sharing that kind of stuff online. But what if you, for example, I see people on Twitter especially, atting their mobile phone operator. Hey, BT, I lost signal in this area. Now everyone knows where you are. You're using BT. They can send you an email to your work email account saying, hey, I'm Janet from BT. We have a voucher for you. Click here, you know? It's things like that. There are minuscule in the grand scheme of things, but with that kind of information, it makes it easier for the threat actors to make contact with you and gain a lot more. From something so little, they can get a lot of information or money from you. So if you do that knowing the dangers of your online presence, imagine people who don't have this big picture. Imagine how bad they have it, how much information is floating out there and can be traced back to them. This is why we need to focus on behaviors, because people are different, but ultimately they behave the same. They will volunteer the personal information. They will show a tendency to help. Hey, I'm in dire need of money, help this child, orphan child from whatever. Hey, I'm the CEO, buy me some gift vouchers, right? Sorry. Oh. This kind of stuff. It actually happened in my old company. The finance director was out playing golf and he approved payment. That was good. That was fun. This is why we need to start assessing these behaviors. We need to understand where people's compliance level lies and their appetite to follow instructions and their appetite to be scared into doing something. Because people will usually react to something designed to elicit an emotional response. So either because of fear, or you're too busy going from meeting to meeting, or you have stuff at home weighing on you, or, I don't know, it's your last day before going on a holiday, things will impact your response to this. And the more we train it, the easier it is to avoid falling prey to this. So, you need to teach people what to do. Like, you're in the middle of a report, typing away, all good. You get a message from DHL saying, hey, you need to pay for this delivery. Do your colleagues need to know where to check? Do they know where to check if they've ever ordered something that was supposed to be delivered via DHL? Do they know how to track the history of this occurrence to learn if it's legitimate or not? Do they know how to check the content or the headers to confirm the legitimacy of the email? Do they know how to report the email ultimately? Or let's say you're in the office and you see this guy like fixing the printer, but you've never seen him before. Do you have enough courage to go and challenge him? People are ultimately bad at challenging others because you don't want to be the one preventing someone else from doing their job. And it's very difficult to train that. But we need to make people feel okay with being vulnerable and being wrong. Even if I go to that person and say, hey, are you actually with a maintenance company or whatever? And they say yes, and they provide me with a badge that proves that. That's okay. I only took like 2 minutes of his time. But what if that person is actually someone who came here to gather intelligence on us, and they're just like looking through the history of the printer to see what kind of documents we printed before. So, it's very uncomfortable, but this is what we need to do. We need to educate people and family and friends that it's okay to step outside the comfort zone. It's okay to ask the challenging questions. We want them to have the right attitude towards security, and that sometimes involves being a bit difficult, being a bit skeptical, ultimately. We need to make sure that on this long journey we're all together, and as businesses grow, we need to ensure that this element of staying secure can be scaled up. Because truth is, organizations of all sizes can be a target. Bigger organizations have more money. Smaller ones, they have either a relaxed approach to security or less resources to deal with it. So it's everyone's everyone's responsibility to be as secure and as aware as possible. And this is not done just through regular phishing training, or through that 1-hour session of InfoSec training once a year. This is something that you constantly have to work towards, and you constantly have to adapt to, and you constantly have to learn about. And I know it's not our colleagues' responsibility, but it's our job to basically hold their hand through all of this. So, why is working with people the only way to reach this vision? So, if you rely on making security awareness everyone's business, you have multiple lines of defense, ready to act when needed. And maybe someone configured your email security wrong, or your VPN was not deployed the right way, or something happened. Maybe you have a tailgating incident, but what will people do? Will question that person. Maybe someone's requesting elevation for user rights. Someone will say, hold on, this is not the right procedure. The new CEO that's asking you for vouchers, they'll say, I'm sorry, I need to go check with my manager if that's okay. Because technology is not always up to date, but we can still rely on the human element, the one that threat actors also rely on, to keep us safe and protected. So, like I said before, behaviors trickle down, and they ultimately help build a secure environment, a secure culture. If you see people constantly leaving their laptops unlocked, you'll start doing so because it gives you a false sense of security. If you see people locking their computers, questioning, why are you sending me your password on Teams? Why are you sharing your access badge with your colleague? People will start thinking, this is not how things are run around here. So, like I said, we need to make it easy for people to ask those questions and stay skeptical and suspicious every step of the way. Oops, my bad. I did something I shouldn't have. And I went back to the start. Yes. Okay. It was my last slide anyway, so thank you. I apologize. If you have any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
That's the mic. Thank you, Andreea. That's great. Have you got time for answering questions?
Yes. Do we have
Great. Anybody got a question? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, I had a question. Is that all right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I can imagine that when you put in a change your security awareness program in a company, it costs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Is there a metric that you can think of that we can persuade the executive team to absorb this cost? Can they measure it?
There are methods to measure it, and to be fair, I'm still working on trying to quantify it in a financial way, because that's how the board wants it. But until now, because it was mostly checkbox exercise, a compliance requirement more than anything else, it was hard to look at security awareness from the perspective of human risk, which is what we're shifting towards right now. So once this approach is a bit more established, I think it would be easier to try and bring the financial aspect into it. Right now, it's just like kind of like a standard blanket approach to it. Yes, this is bad. This is 5 out of 5. So we're just gonna put this as high as possible on the list.
Superb. Thank you. Yes. We have a question. Right for Mike.
Not so much a question, just positive feedback.
Oh.
You're absolutely right in all that, and doing similar stuff, and our organisation and things like that. So one of the few key things is pick the security up, take it out of IT, very much so, then you can much better integrate with it in whatever organisation you might be working with, and then carefully craft everything you're doing to make it positive.
Yes, definitely. The positive reinforcement is what we're focusing on. Like I said, what is the desired effect for all of this? Ultimately, you'll have people clicking on it. But what are we trying to teach them? We're trying them to stay aware. We're trying them to recognize what the triggers are. We're trying them to teach them to report. And if they don't know how to report, they should know where to go to ask for that. And this is the kind of positive reinforcement that we're trying to do.
Any more questions?
But have you spoken to Sarah Anstey, who gave two talks before?
No, I haven't had the chance, but I will.
Yeah, do.
Okay.
She was looking at human risk management and
cool.
all that sort of stuff as well, so exactly what it is.
Thank you. Thank you. I will. Thank you. Oh, there's someone there.
Do you think that the current cybersecurity focus is more on victim gaslighting, blaming the users, not the real problem, which is the process failure of the companies and services that supposed to provide secure services?
So I will give a very controversial answer, and I will say yes to that. It's easy to find someone in the company who can be used as a scapegoat. Rather than try and understand what are the failings along the way, because that's not one single point of failure. There are multiple. And they can be technical or they can be human related, doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, let's call it the organization who drives the attack, they are responsible for that. We can lock as many doors as possible, but at the end of the day, if someone wants to break in, they will find a way. What we can do is make sure that we have people trained enough not to panic when that happens.
So not sure if you can actually share this, but what was your favorite teachable moment?
Oh, favorite teachable moment. Oh, I can actually share this. So someone clicked on for the fourth time on a phishing simulation, which meant they had to see me. Unlucky for them. And I think the biggest shock of their life was when they found out that actually it's unsafe to join a Wi-Fi network, a public Wi-Fi network, without that doesn't have any password. And they were like, so if I go to Starbucks and suddenly, would that be okay? And I was like, ideally no. And that was the biggest teachable moment. And I think some kind of light bulb happened there because they never clicked again. Yeah.
Any more questions? No, we're all good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.